When everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, all council members are here, and so are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, I need a motion to approve it. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Cindy, second by Josh to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. There's no unfinished business, so we'll move on to the first public hearing, which I'm going to open up the hearing for the 2017 street project. We'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We're here for the hearing on improvement on the 2017 street and utility improvements here within the community. We'll visit a little bit tonight about the project that the council is considering for construction. We'll visit a little bit about estimated project costs, talk about construction schedule, and talk about assessments, because the city's policy is when they do improvement projects that there are assessments associated with those improvements. Looking at the project area, we're looking at 2nd Avenue in between 2nd Street and 4th Street, and 2nd Street in between the Trunk Highway and 2nd Avenue is the general project area. We're also looking at doing some work on some storm sewer work on the alley that goes up towards the city shop. You know, what's the need for the improvement? Well, the sanitary sewer system is old, has high I&I. It's old clay pipe. Water mains are undersized, old cast iron pipe. There's an area here that we want to loop the water main also. Storm sewers are old and undersized, and most of those are clay pipe also, and the pavement is pretty well depreciated out within the project area. You know, when you look at when the city council considers a street and a utility improvement project, it's always maybe nice to look at some of the things that are actually underneath the roadways. Sanitary sewer is usually in the middle of the road. That's the deepest sewer, or the deepest of the city infrastructure, and then from that there are service lines that go to the houses and businesses. Next deepest of the utilities is typically the water main, and water mains also have service lines that go to the houses, plus there's the hydrants at the intersection. The shallowest of the main utilities is the storm sewer. Generally, is the storm sewer, and of course there's the catch basins in the curb lines there also. Some of the things that you don't see is some of the small utilities, the natural gas lines, the electric lines, telephone, fiber optic lines, cable TV. Those sorts of things are typically in the boulevard, and then of course you've got the curb and gutter in your various pavement sections. The one thing is you see infrastructure project moving forward, you see a contractor out there working, and the first thing you're thinking is they're wearing out the dirt because they keep digging holes, putting a pipe in the ground, filling the hole back up, and then a few weeks or a few days later they come back and they dig it up again and fill it back up and dig it out again. And what they're doing is putting in each of these individual utilities, and they really need to finish these utilities from a block to block basis before they start installing. You know, they finish the sanitary sewer before they start the water main, finish these two before they start the storm sewer work. And then once all of those mains are in, then they have to come back and put in the water services and the sewer services. And the one thing with the water services, they're never installed until after the new water main is installed and it's loaded with water, it's pressure tested, and it's disinfected. You know, one of the things there, we always want to make sure that we've got good, clean, potable water going to the houses when they're hooked back into the water system. So there's just a whole lot of different things that happen within that public right-of-way. With some of the goals of the project, this is a little bit of a unique goal right here. When we're looking at 2nd Avenue, the roadway itself actually gets outside of the right-of-way. This is, the red right here is the right-of-way line, little unique right-of-way in this area, but the roadway itself is actually outside of the right-of-way. And I've got another slide that shows that the sanitary sewer and water main also encroach onto private property over in this area. So one of the goals of the project is actually to move the roadway to the north to get it back into the public right-of-way. So we're right here looking to put curb and gutter on here, get the curb and gutter back into the right-of-way. What that does is it puts us real close to the ball field and the light poles that are out there, but we can make everything fit in there. There's not a lot of extra room to spare, but we can make that work. But as part of that realignment, there is a tree or two over here that would be taken down. We're kind of looking at the 2nd Avenue improvements starting here at 2nd Street. Looking at installing a storm sewer line, replacing the existing storm sewer line. From previous projects, newer storm sewer was brought up to the intersection, so this is really an extenuation of some of those earlier storm sewer improvements. Also looking to install a water main through the block right here. There actually isn't and if everyone is familiar with this, the park area, the tennis courts over here, bus station. With the water main, there actually isn't a water main in here today, but we would like to put a water main in there and close the loop. And why do we want to have a looped water main? It gives better water quality, keeps fresh water moving through the system by eliminating dead ends. It also, if we have a break in the main somewhere and have to shut off a block, if the system is looped, we can keep everybody, we can minimize the number of people who actually are out of water service when unfortunate things like that happen. And here we're to the middle of the block area. There's an existing sanitary sewer. The trunk sewer actually comes through here and heads out towards the wastewater treatment facility. So there's an existing sanitary sewer here that we're looking to replace, and again the water main and the storm sewer. When we move the roadway to the north, this would be at the what were we looking at? The right center field fence at the baseball field. There's an inlet behind the curb there today. We're moving the roadway a little bit to the north towards the fence, so we're looking at putting in a few smaller intakes here to make sure that we've got some nice drainage maintaining some nice drainage at the baseball fields. And here would be the east end of the 2nd Avenue improvements, getting over here to 4th. There's that existing sanitary sewer that runs through here, cuts across private property. The water line also cuts across. So what we're looking to do is to move both of those utilities to the north a little bit, get that sanitary sewer back into the middle of the road, get that water main, it'd be about 11 feet south of the center of the road. I guess the one thing I didn't talk about was the street width. Looking to construct a roadway that's about a 34.4 foot wide roadway, and what that does is it matches the existing roadway width on the west end. There's no real magic to that. We're trying to match street widths. The roadway section here would actually be a heavy pavement section because of all of the bus traffic in the area. Now we're skipping back to where we started, but we're going to go up on 2nd Street from 2nd Avenue intersection. On this road, there's actually two water mains. There's two old water mains, one in the street, one behind the curb on the east side of the roadway. Looking to replace that with a new 8-inch water main. Service lines would of course be replaced in conjunction with the water main replacement. There's a storm sewer in the street. It's a PVC pipe, and the thought is we're going to let that as is within the roadway here. No sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer for these properties comes from the alley, and no sanitary sewer needs in the park. With the storm sewer in the alley, we've got some drainage issues happening up at the city shop, and what we're looking to do here is to provide some additional hydraulic capacity. Hopefully we can stop those backups of water into the shop. Along with that, there'd be a catch basin, and maybe an extra catch basin on this side of the alley also. I guess that would get worked out in the final design, assuming that the project moves forward. But as we go through here, the aprons at driveways would get removed and replaced also with the street width here. Street width looking at a 38-foot roadway. 38-foot roadway is basically what is there today. And as we move up into the next intersection, trying to salvage some of these curb radiuses that were put in within the last 10 years on previous projects, trying to keep some of those project costs down. So we're gonna match those street widths. There is a little bit of a bend in the street. The right-of-way here is quite interesting, but none of that stuff really impacts any of the proposed improvements. The roadway is going to go back in substantially the same spot as where it is today. We do need to, the intersection here is actually some newer pavement, but unfortunately we do need to come through there with our water system improvements and connect onto that existing water main, and that would come up to just south of the trunk highway. We're looking to stay out of the trunk highway right-of-way, and we have to go actually out into the boulevard on the west side of the road in order to hook onto the existing water. We'll put a T in there someday in the future, and when more improvements are done to the north, we'll take off from that T, and this stuff over here will all get abandoned. But new hydrants being installed also as part of the project, and again, water services. There is an existing force main that comes down through the roadway, cuts across and then goes diagonal across the park. That force main is less than 20 years old. PVC pipe, I think C900 PVC pipe is what records show it is. So we aren't looking to mess with that. Stay away from that infrastructure. That's still in good shape. When we look at some street sections, with the residential pavement section is essentially 3.5 inches of bituminous and 13 inches of gravel. With the gravel section, we always look to reclaim the existing bituminous that's on the street along with the existing gravel and incorporate that back into the project, trying to be as economical as we can, keeping those project costs down. We do include some geotextile fabric in here. What that fabric does is it creates a separation barrier. If the subgrade if the existing clay soils, the subgrade is a little bit soft, we put that down, and it, well, in essence, it makes a better roadway. With the heavy pavement section, bituminous goes up to 5 inches of bituminous and 15 inches of aggregate. Again, looking to use some of that salvage bituminous and aggregate to help keep project costs down. With access during construction, streets will be closed during most of the underground construction work. Parking and deliveries would be available from the side streets. If you have any special needs, if anybody along the route has any special access needs or concerns, if you would have a special event planned, something like that, all of those things, you can let City Hall know, and you can work our best or do our best to have a contractor make accommodations for that. Temporary access to properties would be restored as soon as possible once the gravel is put down on the street. And again, all of this is making an assumption that the council is going to decide to continue forward with the project. The one thing I'd like to stress is if you have some pre-existing issues, maybe some drainage issues, anything like that you think maybe we could help correct or help mitigate as part of the project, just speak up. If it's easy to make a few minor changes to better accommodate you, the residents, we want to try to do that. So if there are some things along those lines, let me know. Let Marcia know here at City Hall. With the estimated project cost with the street improvements, about $550,000 is the estimated project cost for the street work, which would include all the turf restoration, those sorts of things also. Sanitary and sewer and services, about $61,000. Water main and services, about $220,000. Storm sewer, about $90,000, for a total project cost of about $923,000. How does the city provide financing for the project? Well, they use bonding, and to repay that bonding, the city uses special assessments and general fund dollars, and also revenues generated from the utility funds to pay off those bonds, to pay the project costs. The city does have an special assessment policy, and And that's really why we're meeting here tonight, is this is the first of 2 hearings to introduce you to the project and to let you know what the estimated assessments are going to be. The goal for the project is to have a minimum of 20% assessed. When we look at what the special assessment policy is, and again, this is something that was put together by earlier councils, not by the group here. This has been on the books for a long time. The whole goal with the special assessment policy is to try to create a policy that's consistent year after year after year, so there's equity with all of the residents within the community, that everybody is treated equitably, treated the same. So with their street surface and curb and gutter, the assessment rate for that, this would be the property owner cost. Their share that's the assessment amount, is 25% of the project cost on the front lot and 12.5% or a 50% reduction on the side lot. By definition in the policy, the front lot is your street address. Okay, street address is the front lot. Now, what happens to the other 75% and 87.5%? Well, those are city expenses, and the city general fund is typically what is used to finance the lion's share of the street improvement cost. With concrete walk and driveways, 50% of the cost to replace your driveway is assessed, and the other 50% is paid by the community, and again, that cost typically comes back to the general fund. Storm sewer, there's no assessment for storm sewer, and 100% of that cost then comes back to the community. On the sanitary and water mains, there's no assessment for the water mains or the sewer mains. 100% of that comes back to the community. The revenues to pay that bond cost for sanitary and water mains is included in part of the payments that you make every month with your utility bills. Okay, the dollars from your utility bills are used to pay that debt service. On the sanitary and water services, 100% of that project cost is assessed, and the community doesn't pay anything for that. And that's a personal thing specific to individual properties. I think that's why the councils before this decided to make that 100% assessment item. When we look at estimate to what the actual assessment rates are going to be, and that's what this table looks at. This column right here looks at what the actual project cost is estimated to be. This is the assessment rates that we just talked about, the percentages, and this would be the resulting assessment amount. So on a residential property with a front lot, estimated assessment is about $27 per linear foot of lot frontage. On a side lot, it would be half of that, $13.50 per linear foot. The heavy street section, about $37 a linear foot would be the assessment rate for that. With the curb and gutter, the assessment rate is at 25% of the project cost, or just about $4.80 per linear foot. On a front lot, on a side lot, $2.40 per linear foot. Concrete sidewalk has an estimated cost of about $5 a square foot. 50% of that would be the assessment amount, would be $2.50 per square foot for that assessment. Concrete driveway, about $68.20 per square yard for that project cost. So half of that would be about $34.10 per square yard. Bituminous driveways, you see that obviously a lesser cost there. New sanitary sewer service, 100% assessed. Estimated cost there is about $1,340. I think there's maybe only one sanitary sewer service on the whole project, unless we discover something here during the design process. With the new water service, estimated assessment rate there is about $1,620 for each. A number of properties would have new water services. Again, all of these are, I can't stress enough that all of these are estimates based on previous bids, this year's bids, last year's bids. Actual assessments would be based on actual bid prices provided by the contractor and the actual quantities of work completed. So all of these are estimates. And as I get to the end here, that's the first thing I want to remind again, is that everything here, they're preliminary preliminary only at this time. That the actual assessment rates are going to depend on contractor bids and actual quantities of work completed. The final assessment amounts would be presented at a final hearing on assessment, and typically in November or December, would be in the late in 2017. And prior to that meeting, the council would need to determine what the interest rate is going to be and what the term is going to be for the assessments. And there's a notice that is sent out, so what the final assessment amounts are going to be, there'll be written notice outlining what all of those costs would be. With assessments, principal payments are equal over the term of the assessment. Principal and interest payments are due twice a year, and they are made in conjunction with your property taxes that are paid to the county. If you wanted to prepay all or a part of your assessments, that is something that can be done. And there is a deferment of assessment for elderly. It is a deferment. It doesn't mean that assessments go away. It just means that you wouldn't have to pay them probably until a property goes into estate. Assuming that the project moves forward, we'll talk a lot more about this at the hearing on assessment. Okay, assuming that the project moves forward. Looking at a tentative project schedule, well, tonight we're having the hearing on improvement. Assuming that the council wants to continue to move forward, after the hearing tonight, they would authorize preparation of plans and specifications. We'd be looking to approve those at the February 14th meeting and to authorize the advertisement for bids. Looking to have a bid opening in early April so that the council could consider the bids at the April 11th meeting, which would allow then startup of construction sometime in May. Looking to have the work substantially complete by the end of September. It's substantially complete would basically be all of the work except for the last lift of blacktop. So looking to have the seeding done, boulevards restored, all of that work completed, everything but the final lift of blacktop. Probably in November have that final assessment hearing. I believe that's how things have been done in the past, that before the workhorse is put on and the project gets closed out, we actually do the final assessment hearing, and the final punch list items and bituminous wearing course would all be done by June of 2018. Okay. Once the project is completed, there's a warranty period on that. If there's some sidewalk settlement or something like that happens, there is a warranty where the contractor has to come back and make those corrections on items that are related to workmanship. If it's just normal wear and tear or Mother Nature, freeze thaw kind of a thing, those things aren't really covered. But any workmanship items, the contractor has to be responsible for 2 years after completion. You know, what is the toughest part of the whole project? It's really, I think it's the turf restoration, to get Mother Nature and the seeding company working hand in hand so that it's dry enough so that the contractor can get in there and do the boulevard shaping and preparation, get it seeded. And then as the contractor is leaving, we're hopeful that we're going to have a nice light rain, and we're going to have every other day there'll be a nice light rain for the next 10 days and get the grass growing. But that always seems to be the toughest part of every project is the turf restoration. But again, the contractor has an obligation to come back and do some reseeding, and it probably will take quite a few years for it to look like it used to, but ultimately it should. With that, any questions or comments from the council?
Anyone, questions?
Before you'd open it up to the public?
I guess they have none, so you can open it. Anyone have any questions out there in regard to the 2017 street project?
I do have one. On the east end there, you're not straightening that out to where it exactly needs to be, or you're just basically, if you go way back to one of your first pictures there towards the east.
Right here?
Now, you're basically, the intersections are gonna meet where they originally were?
The intersection, the roadway will actually be offset a little bit to the north. The south
It will
will
be somewhat,
yes, yeah.
but it's not gonna be a straight line.
No, it will not. Someday in the future, when the east side of the intersection is done, at that point, some things will have to happen.
You're straightening it out enough to compensate
Yeah,
off personal property.
yeah. And this is the right-of-way line, this dashed line right here is the right-of-way line. So we're real close to the railroad property right through here. And where we're moving the road to get back into the right-of-way up here, we aren't, 5 feet into the right-of-way, we're a foot or so. We're just getting it off of private property. Well, and with the constraints that we have with the ball field, that's the best that we can really do there. Yeah.
Any other questions? If not,
Okay.
then I think we can close the, do you have any additional comments?
No, I think you could close the hearing.
Okay. So I'll need a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Cindy, second by Jenny, to close the hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
And then for the council tonight, we'd be looking for the authorized preparation of the plans and specifications. Because the project is being initiated by the council, you need a supermajority vote to continue forward with the project. So if there's reservations at all, should probably have those discussions tonight. Supermajority vote is a 4/5 vote, which is required in order to continue forward under the 429 assessment process. Okay?
Thank you. Okay, with that, the hearing is closed, and now we'll move on to, I'm going to open up the hearing for the truth and taxation. I think she's trying to bring something up. Okay, I guess while she's playing around over there, no. No, okay. Talking about the tax levy, the levy for last year was 2016, this year was $489,060. And the proposed levy for 2017 is $500,000, and that's a 2.236% increase from last year. Anyone on the council have any questions or any comments?
Some of that increases the actual project, right? The street project, I believe.
What's that?
Some of the increase is due to the street project. Is that correct?
Well, kind,
Yes.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, it would be included.
No.
Anyone in the audience? Any questions? I guess if not, then I'll ask for a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the truth and taxation hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made by Ross, seconded by Josh, to close the hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, with that, we're moving on to Mr. Miller, is it? Tim Miller? From the Missouri River Energy Services, who's going to give us a little presentation on the electric rate study that was done.
A few handouts back there remaining. I don't have enough for everyone. Council's got their own study, the full study, but it's like a handout go ahead and take one.
We have some extras.
There's extra ones here if anyone wants to.
Well, and that's the full, that's the full report. The
Okay.
handouts are just the presentation, but
Okay.
yeah, which is the same material basically. Oh. I'll start while she's getting it up. There's a couple aspects to the rate study. We want to look at total revenues to make sure that that's sufficient to cover all the utility costs. And then the other aspect is really looking at individual customer classes and customers to see if they're paying what they should be based on the cost of service. So that's really the two pieces of the study. And the first piece, in terms of total revenues, the utility's looking very good, even though you've lost the Prinsco plant, which is obviously a big hit to the community in many ways. But because of your strong reserves and because of the drop in power costs that we'll see, the total revenues are looking, I think, adequate. But we have suggested some changes too. I've got a zip drive too if you need it. But
Yeah, right?
okay.
Go slideshow.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're back. Oh. I think we're good. Okay, so again, we're not suggesting or proposing any overall increases for the next couple of years. Just some changes within the customer classes to kind of reallocate, realign the rates. And I don't know when the last study was. I think it's been many years. And so, these things need to be looked at from time to time. And that's why we're here, is just to kind of look at all the cost allocations and see where you're at. So most customers are going to see a change in each year. Even though the total revenues aren't going to change, customers are going to see either a small increase or a small decrease to get things in line. And these are things that we do a lot with the studies. I was in Delano last night, which is another Central Minnesota member, and kind of looking at the same types of proposals, really just to kind of realign costs. So reasons why we don't need an increase: again, very strong cash reserves at about 200% of operating revenues. So that's the good news, is that you have a real healthy cash balance, which has accumulated over many years, and that's important to the utility because. With the electric utility and any other utility, some big costs that can occur. If you have, for instance, needs at the substation, we need to do a lot of work there. It wouldn't be difficult to go through $1 million or more, very easily if you needed a new transformer. So that's a good reason to have these cash, and it's important to hold on to that. And so the revenues would still provide the cash flows that you need, but we are looking at some rate structure changes, higher customer charges and demand rates. But what we add to one charge, we would take away from others. So in many cases, it's kind of a zero-sum type of change. The other thing we're going to look at is rate comparisons. You'll see that your rates are very competitive with most of your customers. So, again, you're paying low electric bills here in Fairfax. Looking at your energy requirements, you can see in 2012, it was about 14,000 megawatt hours, and now it's down to about under 11,000 next year. And really, most of that is Prinsco. They were using over 3 million kilowatt hours, or 3 million megawatt hours, I should say, or 3,000 megawatt hours back in 2012. And that's really the essence of that drop. It's about 23% drop in sales from 2012 through projected 2017. So that was, again, a real big deal for the electric utility. The red line there is your WAPA power from the federal government. And so by next year, really, they're going to be providing over 80% of your total. So the good news is their costs are going down next year. So that's kind of a saving grace for the utility, is that you're going to see some cost savings both in 2017 and hopefully in 2018. So breakdown of your sales by class: residential is about 62%. Our typical average is 42%. Again, with Prinsco leaving, this has really changed dramatically. You were down at about 47% residential before they left. So that's been a big change here. Your largest customers are really the school and Casey's. They both use about 3.5% of the total power. So no big concentration anymore of power usage within your city. Just the cost breakdown: a little under half of your total electric bills go to pay for purchase power and transmission. The next big piece there is other operating, which is salaries and some of your other O&M costs. Transfers is a rather big piece there at 19%. That's funds that are flowing to the general government to pay for just all the activities that you're doing there. And then capital expenditures in small amounts that you're still contributing to reserves. So those are kind of the big pieces of the total. And the only difference from studies we normally see is the purchase power would be a little bigger piece of the total if the transfer was smaller. But again, otherwise it's pretty typical. And really salaries and benefits is less than 10% of the total. So that's a really small piece of the total if you broke that out. Speaking of transfers, we have assumed a $200,000 transfer this year and also 18 through 20. And then a larger amount of $660 next year with the street project, which obviously you're still looking at, but we did put that in there as a placeholder so that if some funds are needed from the electric utility to help pay for part of that, that would be part of the amounts we're looking at. So again, I know that's subject to change, but speaking with Marcia, we figured that would be good to put as a placeholder in there. So the total would be just under 1.5 million of funds that would be flowing from the electric utility to general government and other functions over this 5-year period. APPA, and also we do a study of the transfers of other utilities, and that comes in right around 6% as a median, but certainly you're not the only utility that is having larger transfers. So it's really based on the local needs, and that's really the beauty of having your own utility, is that you have that option and that flexibility to do what you need to do with the funds that are that you're raising from the various utility funds that you have, and also from general government. So this brings together all the costs and changes that are going on. Purchase power, we're expecting to actually go down by $70,000 from this year to 2020. A big part of that is the WAPA decrease. Again, they've already announced a 15% decrease next year, and looking at least 10% 2018. We were at a meeting last week where they indicated it might even be more than that. So we'll see what happens. We're not going to count on that, but hopefully that good news comes through, and so that's cost savings to your residents and businesses here in town. Transmission costs, the cost of getting power from the generating plants to Fairfax is going up, so that's kind of counterbalancing some of the decrease in WAPA costs. Other expenses, we're projecting only about a $20,000 increase over the 5 years. Transfers, again, in 17 it might be a little bit bigger amount, but over the term of the, from 16 to 20 would still be at that $200,000. And again, all of this is subject to change based on council budgeting every year. So again, these are just placeholders. They're not saying that you're for sure going to do these amounts. Total costs would then go down by $50,000. Revenues will drop by about $100,000. A lot of that, again, is principal closing in the middle of this year, so next year would reflect the full year without their revenues, plus interest income dropping. So, but even with the bottom line there, you can see the gray section there that you still have about $115,000 available for capital expenditures and reserves. So if you take your revenues less your costs, that's the amount that you still have available to do whatever you need to do on the system, whether it's new transformers or new services or so on. And we're only assuming about $73,000 a year in capital expenditures. So we feel like you're still going to have your needs covered, even with the without increasing rates. As far as cash reserves, then you've got currently over 200% of operating revenues. The median is 50%. But I will say that for some of the smaller utilities that we work with, they tend to have a higher percentage of reserves. So you're more in line with what we've seen with some of the other smaller utilities, just because you need a certain amount just to have a viable utility and to have the reserves you need. Again, if you had a big substation failure or something like that, you need this kind of cash available to do those things. So these are your cash reserves. You can see are at about $2.4 million at the end of this year. They would drop off next year with the transfer, but then go back up slowly to about $2.2 million. So I guess at this point, I'm not seeing you as needing to add a lot to reserves, but just, again, if you have a small excess every year, that's a good thing to make sure you're not going the other way and really dipping into cash year after year. So that's kind of what we're targeting with this, is just a small extra amount available at the end of each year. Net income, again, is going to be dropping off. You can see 2012 through 15, other than, I think, a bigger transfer in 13, but you were doing very well. And with Prinsco closing, that's really taken, I'm estimating close to $200,000 of income would be the hit from, again, losing that customer. So it's been a big deal, but you'll still have a small amount of income going forward. I'm going to skip over the a couple key definitions again. Demand energy. Energy is probably familiar to most people. That's what the quantity is on your bill that you receive at home. But peak demand is an important factor that we use, especially for business customers, and looking at the maximum rate of delivery that they are having throughout the month. So it's just kind of taking snapshots throughout the month to see the most that they're drawing at any half an hour or 15-minute period. Just some examples of that, Casey's would be, say, a 60 kilowatt demand. The grocery store might be 45. Convenience stores, some others might be in that range too. If you had like a Subway in town, that might be 25. The school is at around 100. So it gives you an idea of some of the demands. And the load factor is the other key part there, and it's really looking at how efficient and consistent the usage is throughout the month. So a higher load factor customer costs you less to serve, and vice versa, a lower load factor customer costs more to serve. And so that's kind of what we're reflecting in the demand and energy rates that we charge to our business customers. Looking at the major cost types then and doing the cost allocations, and we do a number of different steps in that to kind of look at your costs and allocate them to the three classes that you have: residential, small, and large commercial. You can see the targets there of what we'd like to see for a customer charge over many years would be something in the neighborhood of $17.50 for residential, $20 for small commercial, and then $54 for large. If you were to get to those levels, then you would drop the energy rate, corresponding to that. And so what we're seeing with a lot of utilities is that, again, raising those fixed charges, because there are a lot of fixed costs of providing service, costs that don't change whether you use 200 kilowatt hours in a month or 1,200, you still have some similar costs that you have with serving customers. So that's what we're trying to really collect in those charges. The cost of service results then in allocating the costs, it shows that residential should have a little bit of an increase. And some of the commercial customers should actually see a small decrease. And the largest customers are the ones that probably should have the biggest decrease. So in other words, in the case of commercial power or large commercial, their costs are coming in at about 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour, but the revenues are coming in at 10.7. So they're paying a little bit more than they should based on the cost of service. The flip side in residential, their costs are about 0.6 higher than the revenues that you're receiving. So these, again, are things you want to look at periodically, and this hasn't been looked at for many years, and so I want to take a look at where you were at. We're not suggesting these percentages in our proposal, so we've moderated it from these levels. These are kind of the guideline, but we've pulled back from these a little bit to kind of reflect that you don't want to do all these changes all at once. So you'll see in the proposals that they're less than this in terms of residential increases and so on. So looking at the recommendations then, we're looking at if you looked at your bill, if you're familiar with the electric rates, the rates actually go up with usage. So at a certain level in each class, the rates get more expensive if you use more power. And I think that's something that was added in the last 5 or 6 years. I believe that was probably done to promote conservation, but what we've seen with Prinsco and any other large customer is that it actually hurts the utility by tamping down on usage. The less usage that you are having customers have on their bill, it really is detrimental to the utility. So the state does require some conservation efforts, and I think you're still going to be doing that, obviously, but what we're looking at is actually eliminating that inclining block, and so there'd be a single energy rate charge in each class. And so what that does is, again, going back to the fixed costs, making sure that you're recovering that in times when usage might be declining, you're still getting enough revenues to pay the cost of the utility. You've got a natural gas utility, but those that have electric heat, they're going to see a better rate or a smaller or no increase. And the big thing is, I think the last bullet there is that it would provide for a more attractive rate for a new large commercial customer. If you are able to attract someone, this is going to provide a more equitable and competitive rate for that customer. And I know that's going to be a goal of the city, is to try to keep and hopefully get some new businesses into town. As far as the customer charges, then those charges have been the same since 2007. So coming up on 10 years here, and this is something a lot of utilities are doing. Is moving some costs into the customer charge, taking away from the energy rate. The average of 100 area utilities is $11.20, and a lot of utilities are going up by $1 or $2 per year, and that's exactly what we're proposing to do for you. You can see the breakdown of some of the costs that we're trying to put into the residential customer charge to collect billing, meter reading, distribution facilities. These are all costs that really don't vary, again, based on how much usage the customer has. So we're trying to put that into a customer charge to be more equitable about how we recover our costs. Something you might have heard of the industry and kind of drives home the point of these fixed costs is solar generation. Solar panels the costs of them are going down rapidly, and so don't have, I don't think, any in town right now, but sooner or later I think you're going to see some customers starting to look at this as an option. So if you had a 5 kilowatt solar panel on a residential roof, they would generate about 6,200 kilowatt hours, which is about a half of a typical customer's usage throughout the year. What the customer would basically see is a reduction in their bill of $560, but your costs would only go down by about $220. So it'd really be about a $340 loss to utility for everyone that chooses to do this. And this is just the reality that we're faced with in the utility business. Whenever we lose sales, this sort of thing is going to happen. So for each individual customer that does it, probably not a big deal, but you can see how this would compound if more and more customers did this. Every time someone did that, that's $340 that the rest of the customers would have to pick up basically to cover that. So that's another reason, again, where we're trying to look at putting some of those costs in the customer charge so that these customers get the right signal in terms of what they should really be avoiding in costs and what they really shouldn't be. So, if you had 56 customers, 10% of your customers do this, the impact would be about 2%. So it does add up over time to being a more substantial hit. But again, in the near term, it's not a big issue, but just want to highlight this as one of the ways that the electric utility is changing. These are the actual residential rates that we're proposing then, so the customer charge would go up just $1 per year, and we'd go to a flat energy rate by 2018, so every customer would pay 8.5 cents for all their energy. So again, electric heating customers would benefit, and on the flip side, the lower volume customers would pay a little bit more than they're paying now, but it wouldn't be a huge change for them either. This is a little bit small, but you can see here for a low volume customer at 250 kilowatt hours, so this might be a single person living in a small home, they're only going to go up $2 per month in 2017 and about $2.50 in 2018. So we're trying to keep those impacts as small as we can. We want to be recognizing that some of these people might be in a fixed income and strapped for paying utility bills, but yet we feel like this change is very important to consider just to prepare the utility for the future and make sure that you're protect the financial integrity really of the utility. At the average of 1,000 kilowatt hours, the customer would also see about a $2 increase. So that's just how the math worked out with going from an inclining block energy rate to just a single rate. Again, so a lot of customers are going to be in that $2 to $3 range for impacts each year. Want to look at the rate comparisons then. I've just got a few more slides. So what we've done is taken 10 area utilities. 4 of these are also Central Minnesota members. 2 of them, St. James and Redwood Falls, are also WAPA customers, but they buy from other suppliers. And then you've got Medelia and Lake Crystal, who do not get WAPA power, and then a couple investor-owned utilities in green. And this is at 500 kilowatt hours, so it's a little bit lower volume user. They're paying $46.50 right now. They would go up to $49.50, but you can see how competitive and low your rates really are at this point. The median in orange there is 35% higher than Fairfax, so you're doing really well here. These customers would pay a lot more. In the case of Lake Crystal, you're probably double at this usage level what you're paying here. So, again, this isn't the only thing to consider. I know that anytime rates go up, it hurts to do that no matter what the dollar increase or where you're at right now. But again, I wanted to show you that you are very competitive in this regard. For a typical user at 1,000 kilowatt hours, you can see the impact would be $2 per month, so pretty modest. Again, the median is 27% higher than Fairfax. So again, doing very well here. A lot of these utilities might be going up over time, so you might be even more competitive over time. And this is a heating customer. Again, you may not have a lot of these, but you do have some, with residential electric heating. You're not quite as competitive here, again, because of that inclining block, because the rate gets higher rate for more usage. The median is only 18% higher, and a lot of these utilities don't have that feature. So in other words, most of these just have a flat energy rate for all energy usage, or in some cases actually a declining block or a lower rate for heating. So that's why you're not quite as low in this chart. On the commercial side then, just a couple naming things, suggesting to rename commercial to small and commercial power to large, just to kind of clarify who's in what class. You do have about 30 commercial customers in that class that are being billed for demand, and really they're the 3-phase customers, which is again, just having 3 voltage sources instead of 1. So they're being billed for demand right now. Some of them are very small. Some of them have demands that aren't much bigger than a house, to be honest. And so what we're suggesting is actually have a new threshold, so anyone over 20 kilowatts would continue to be billed for demand, and those under 20 kilowatts would not. And so again, that would be more in line with how other utilities do it. So there would be about 18 customers that would remain in that class, and most of them would see a decrease, again, because they're probably paying a little too much right now, doubling up on the demand charge and the energy rate. So those customers would see a savings. You'd also have 12 customers moving up to the large commercial class. They would continue to be billed for demand. Again, most of them would see a decrease through 2018. So I think what we're trying to do is reflect the cost of service and also reflect that a lot of these commercial customers would probably pay a little bit less than they are for their power. The 9 customers that are already in commercial power, and this would be the grocery store, the convenience gas stations, and high school, or middle school, and so on. Again, most of those would see a small to moderate decrease in the next couple of years. So looking at the proposed rates in the commercial class, you can see there at the top section what's going on now is that some of these customers are getting that $5 demand charge, but then they're also getting a higher energy rate of about $0.01 higher than what they would pay in the large commercial class. And we've gone over, I know this is a lot of details, I'm trying to cover it very quickly. We've gone over it with staff and reviewed this, but again, it's just kind of doubling up on some of the cost recovery. So that's why we're taking away that demand charge for the small commercial customers. They would no longer pay that. None of the customers in that class would pay that. They would go to a flat rate of 9.1 cents by 2018. And then the large commercial customers would go to $8.80 for a demand rate, but then their energy rate would go down to $6.50. So again, these are all changes that we're trying to do to prepare for the future and for some of the new realities, and also to give customers a better rate for the power that they use. On the small commercial comparisons then, once again, you're the lowest for this small user, 1,500 kilowatt hours. This would be a small business building, maybe downtown. You can see that their bill would just go up a couple bucks, but the median is 23% higher there in the middle of the chart. For a little bit higher volume customer at 3,000 kilowatt hours, much the same. You can see a couple utilities have snuck in underneath you, but this customer would actually see a small decrease. Median is still 13% higher, so not as competitive as some of the other utilities, but still looking pretty good. This is where it really changes. You can see this is actually based on the middle school's usage, and you can see that the median is only 2% higher than Fairfax. So instead of being on the low end of the chart, like with the residential and the small commercial, you're right at the middle of the chart. Still not a bad place to be, but you can see kind of the effects of maybe collecting a little bit too much from these customers is that you're not as competitive. Some of these other utilities would actually charge less than you. And so again, we're trying to realign the rates to match what the costs are and what other utilities would also do. So this customer would get about a 2% decrease. And then this is a higher load factor. You can see a 63% load factor. So this would be more similar to the grocery store, the 2 gas stations, and some of those customers that use power steadily throughout the month. In this comparison, you're actually above the median. So the median is actually 5% lower than Fairfax. So again, trying to ease back on that a little bit to make sure that these customers are paying what they should. They would see about a 3% decrease, which is, again, not a lot, but I think it's just important steps to look at periodically to make sure that customers are paying what they should. So then these are the percentages. These are just the averages by class. So again, individual customers might see a little bit different than this, but residential would get about a 2% increase each year over the 2 years. I really think after 2018, unless there's any major changes in the system, that you'd probably be good for some time after that. So again, you haven't had a lot of rate changes. You had a revenue neutral change a year ago. So not a lot of changes that you've had to incorporate, but these are, again, some small increases for these customers. Small commercial would get about a 2% over 2 years, and then some of the bigger commercial customers would see about an 8% decrease on average over the 2 years. Most customers would see a decrease, a few of them would see a single-digit increase, but trying to, again, have more of a widespread decrease for these large commercial customers to reflect the cost of providing service. So in summary then, a couple of rate changes, no overall revenue increase, but just some shifting and changes within the classes to reflect what they should pay. I think the utility otherwise is looking very strong financially, and I think it's going to remain that way. Residents already have, I think, very competitive rates, and this would allow more customers to, again, have those competitive rates as well. And as always, if you have questions, I tell Marcia, and if you ever have questions or want to change some of these things, we're happy to help you and work with some different plans if you need to. So, want to thank Marcia for all her input and all the information she provided, and welcome any questions that anyone would have. So.
I think it was a great study, actually.
Yes.
I think this is something you could use to either attract or bring people to town, just to show where our rates are, and obviously very competitive, and and we still have a fund balance.
Yeah.
Anyways. No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, then moving on, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve it. Second. Jay made a motion and Cindy seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's carried. Then moving on to the Fort River Golf Course Resolution 2016-21. We have you guys here tonight.
Three of us.
Three, four,
Several.
okay. John, did you want to say anything in regard to it? They had their meeting, the Friends had their annual meeting and banquet last Thursday night in town. And they went ahead and passed the affirmation of the legislation that they'd like to have done for the fort. John?
Randy, you got a copy along or?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Well, of course,
I gave a copy too, but
in October, I did not come to that meeting, but
No.
there you were affirming to be part of the proposal that we offered to the DNR that they declined, and now, as I assume you know, Representative Miller is fairly optimistic that he can go to St. Paul, and with support of all of the legislators from this area, Republicans and Democrats, can force, and we don't like to have to do this. All along, it would have been nice to work with the DNR, but
They didn't want to work with us.
They said no to everything, including the final option of, taking the course off of their hands and removing all financial liability. They don't want there to be a golf course at Fort Ridgely State Park. That's evident. So if it wasn't for our legislators, this would be dead. But they're in fact supporting all of us. And
you've put a lot of time into it and hard work into it. You guys have, and Tim has especially put hard work into it.
Yeah.
And Lauren.
Tim has been putting a lot of work into this. His area is one that are writing up the bill and stuff that they're going to put in. So the legislature to try to get it passed. He's talking about putting it in the omnibus bill, which would be one of the last bills that the DNR would try to get through, because that has all the fishing licenses and all the other stuff grouped together in one bill. And he's trying to put it in with that bill too, so that it should float through without the governor or anybody else trying to cancel it. So we're going to see what comes. I know we're going to be going up to some meetings up in the Capitol. We'll be going up to, he's going to have some bill, when we read the bill, they want some meetings and stuff with that. A lot of us will be going up to those meetings, and hopefully we get some of you people may come up too to help support it. And that's what we're looking for.
Because really the pivotal piece to this is now the city of Fairfax. So we do need the government entity that's willing to take part in this. And it's kind of asking a lot, but at the same time, the big picture is there's a $3 to $4 million recreational facility that's 5 miles away that if we were to try building it, there wouldn't be any funding for that. It's there, and they want to destroy it, which just doesn't make any sense at all. Whether us all together can succeed at running it and making it work, we don't know that. I think that, the people that worked with the budget think there's a pretty good chance it can work. Dennis has been involved with that. It deserves a chance, and we'd like to try it.
I think that's the big thing. We at least want to, I mean, like, everyone wants to at least try it, have that opportunity. They don't want the greens and the fairways have Roundup on them, and, you know, like it was all talked about it. Let's just have a chance and see what can happen. And if it doesn't work, if it fails, at least then we've tried.
That was one of the questions that Senator Daines had when we were up at the meeting at the Senate office building. I happened to sit next to the Senator Daines, and he asked me, do you guys think you can try to run this? I said, all we can do is try.
Correct.
We can either lose it or we can make it go. We didn't know which. And that's what we're getting into now.
Right.
John, one of the things our concern was in the omnibus bill is that it's one of the last bills in the legislature, so it's like May. Tim also was saying that we have a chance, so our concern would be that late, you know, where we actually have a bill so that we can fundraise properly. You know, we have an entity that can fundraise. One of the things Tim said, that we have a chance for some legacy funds to at least fund us that first year, and then see with the fundraising what we can do thereafter. So that was kind of a key part, I think, as far as the Friends and as far as our board, is to get the fundraising, get the capital going, and to be able to cash flow it. So that's another part of it that's, I thought, was pretty influential as far as legislatively.
This thing we may not be playing golf on there in May. It may be August or September before we can play golf on it. We don't know. Because that all depends on funding and everything else. Those are some things that we have to work through to try to get it, to make it come out.
I'm Randy Christmas from Sleepy Eye.
I should have introduced you guys. I'm sorry.
Involved in this all and talked to several of you quite a bit, so I really thanks for letting us come here and trying to get your involvement with this. But Tim did say, Representative Miller did say, a key part of this would be if it passes out of committee, and he thought that could happen in February, early March, and he said, for then, I mean, we're kind of walking a tightrope here. For the DNR to destroy the course in April and May, if it's passed out of committee, he didn't think would happen. So we're walking a tightrope here, but Tim's, Representative Miller is very optimistic that it can happen. So
He's very optimistic.
yeah, he's fun. He's been good to work with. Those that you've met him, I'm sure most of you have. You know, he's a positive person.
Does anyone have any other questions for these guys?
One question I have is, have you made any adjustments to the proposal? The initial, some of their concerns that they had?
Well, we are going to be meeting soon to do that.
Okay.
Now, a very frustrating part of this, we sent in our proposal, they did not come back and say, well, you know, we don't like this, this, and this, and could you adjust this? No, they said, we reject the proposal, press release, the golf course is closing. So obviously they weren't, we don't think they were really very serious about entertaining the proposal.
I don't think they're even listening. Maybe they didn't even read it. They only saw one thing, that there's going to be alcohol sold out there.
Yeah, that was really frustrating.
And they killed it right there. But right now, they've got 2 golf courses that have got alcohol that's being served at those golf courses. And the golf course is being run by some other entity that's running it for them.
We will take a look at that. You know, if there's some reasonable concessions we can make to their issues they had, we will. But at the same time, Representative Miller said to us being you and us together, that we need to ask for what it takes to make this work. So I don't see it changing a lot from what we had there.
Right. A couple of the keys is because we've been trying to look at Fort Snelling that's run by Minneapolis, and they allow carts. They allow canned beer is how they, and so that was one of the things we felt carts would be pretty important. As far as originally, it's a very physically demanding course if you're just going to walk it. So consequently, you know, I think it can limit as far as participation. But what Representative Miller was asking us, you know, let's put together the reasonable proposal that we feel will make it successful, and that's what he would turn around and do and try and move forward. So we're trying to be reasonable as far as the proposal, but yet We have to make it so that we have a chance to make successful cards. You know, if you can't, we'd like to use the chalet. The DNR came back, says no, the chalet needs to be shared. You know, we'd be willing to do that. So there's a lot of things we'd be willing to sit down and work with them on if they would at least try to come back and say, well, we don't like this or we don't like that, which they did. So Tim was kind of to the point, well, let's get bipartisan legislative and let's move forward on it as far as to the
Omnibus.
It's easy, not easy for me to say.
Okay, so basically what we need here is we need to pass this resolution 2016-21, which is what we're asking for a legislative request to have that legislated for the course. So do I have a motion for that?
Can I just add one other thing?
Yes.
You know, all along, you know, we've, in my mind, and I think a lot of us, we've always imagined this as working well with the Mayflower Country Club. Now, I don't know exactly how that happens right now, but I do think if the golf course is saved, if we end up running it, there is going to eventually be a complementary move toward those golf courses working together. And we certainly, Fort Ridgely doesn't want to compete with Mayflower by any means, or compete with Sleepy Iron Wall or any of those around here. We think Fort Ridgely Golf Course is unique and kind of complement all of those and draw a different set of people to the area. So.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. Motion's made by Jenny, seconded by Cindy to approve resolution 2016-21. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Then moving on to number 11, which is the 2017 street project, which is resolution 2016-22, where we're preparing to get specs for the project. Is there any question or any concerns or any comments on that? I think we had a good presentation by Andy tonight, so we kind of know what it's all about.
Can we just make sure, Andy, I don't know how the issue down by First Avenue, the one catch basin, seems higher than where it should, or it's kind of in the wrong spot. Can we just make sure that doesn't happen? It did kind of get resolved in a way, but not a perfect resolution to it, I don't think. So I just hope that doesn't happen in future projects, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I remember we talked about that. Okay, any other comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve resolution 2016-22?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ross, seconded by Cindy to approve resolution 2016-22. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to resolution 2016-24, which is for the budget of the city. And we added on, if you saw here,
I gave you 2 additional budget requests. One was from the fire department, it's for lack of better understanding.
Pedestal
Lights, so that they can see what they're doing at night when they're working on fire. And that was to the tune of $3,000. And the other one was for Tyler Output Processor software. This would allow it. There's a one-time charge, and then it's $1,000 a year annual license. But that would allow the city to email out billings and also our payroll, our direct deposits, all that stuff. We'd have the capability of reducing our mailings for utility bills. They would sign up.
That was one of my questions.
At 29%, which would be 200 customers out of 700. If they go paperless, or if they get their bill by email, that would take care of your $1,000 license fee.
I bet a lot of people would.
How many people are
I think
on like auto pay right now? So I think those are the people that you'd probably have doing this is the ones that are signed up for,
And we
you know.
expect to get more
yeah.
now.
Do you know how many there are? Or,
I asked Chris one day, and there's more than I thought. It's quite a few.
Yeah, we could, there's a lot of them that are on bank draft. There's a lot of them that pay online, and there's ones that just come in and pay with their card at the counter. So you don't really have control of the ones that come in and pay it over the counter. I mean, you don't know, they're not set up. And you don't have them set up for online either. We will have the capacity now after this billing, but before that, they would just go to the webpage and pay online. So you couldn't accurately say, we have, 300 customers that pay by credit card. It varies. But once we can do credit card drafting.
is
we
this
will have
just
that.
for billing? Or is it, can you send other emails out to people?
Yes.
So
Yes,
you
once
could
get
send out,
into it, yeah.
okay. So I just think it'd be good to have, snow emergency parking emails
Right.
or, what else are we doing?
know,
Like
it's
when you're
not-
flushing water hydrants,
Right.
just whether it's a monthly,
Or your
I
dog
think it's
needs
good
its
PR.
license. Okay, so, and we would include these two then in with our budget for this year.
I guess the other thing too is I had 6,500 in for that because everybody was for the screen at the community center for presentations. I put 6,500 in there, and she had given me a proposal for one size bigger. That $7,000 one. That's quite a bit bigger. She recommends that one, but you could get by with the smaller one. But if you have the room packed, you're gonna need a larger screen.
Okay, so is that in here too?
Yeah, that was in there. That's
Okay.
that Tierney.
Okay, yeah, no, but I mean, it's all,
In the budget, it's got 6,500, so I
Okay.
have to increase the budget to that 7,000. And it's doable because there's a balance in there.
so should we act
Well, I
on?
guess I would, if you want to go with the $7,000 screen, I think it'd be 7,000.
Yeah, I can.
Aren't they actually two different types of screens or no?
They're just larger.
I guess the way I read it was one was like
Well,
an idea screen, and then the other one is an electric screen.
it's got a projector over it.
Are they both ceiling mounted?
Yes, the projector is ceiling mounted. I think it's it's not a smart board though.
But she's recommending the one, and that one is 745401. That's the one she's recommending.
Because the screen is twice the size of it, or it's 64 versus 45. I don't honestly remember how it was.
One is 46 by 73, and then it's 73 by 160.
Yeah, it's kind of a bigger.
It just depends on what you think you'll utilize down there. When you fill up half the community room, the large room, and to look at a presentation, or do you think you'll fill up 3/4? Then you'll need a larger screen. Or if it's a wedding and there's no pictures up there,
There's no way we can know that,
we have to make a decision.
I know,
Whether
so-
you.
Bigger
whether you-
is better.
Well, I think we have to go with her recommendation.
She recommended for the size of the room, that's her business, she's
That's not-
recommended
yes.
the larger room.
It would be my idea that we would go with her recommendation since none of us are authorities in this.
So that'd be the only thing that would change in the budget. I'd have to add that amount to the screen allocation.
Okay, so should we act on this screen before we do the budget? Because we're gonna have to add into the budget.
That's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
is that
So-
if you want to go with the larger screen, then I need to add the difference between 6,500 and that 7,000.
Okay, Ross and Cindy, what do you think about the screen?
There's a big size difference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
considering the cost.
I think you should go with the big one.
That's what she
Big one?
recommends.
That's a big one too. Okay, we need a motion for that, so let's have a motion for the screen.
I'll make a motion for the screen for the 71.
The 70, it's 74.
74.
74, 5401.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Jenny made a motion, now we go with the 74, 5401 screen, and Josh seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, then let's go back to the budget. And any more comments on the budget? We'll be adding these two things in, and then the extra money for the screen. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that'll go into Resolution 2016-24. Any other questions in regard to that? If not, do I have a motion to pass that resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Josh, seconded by Cindy to pass Resolution 2016-24. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to, we sure have a lot of resolutions tonight. My goodness. Moving on to the final tax levy, which is at $500,000. Are there any questions concerning that? No? Okay, then with that, do I have a motion to pass that resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ross, second by Josh to pass Resolution 2016-23. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to the electric rate adjustments. Well, we just had a little presentation on that. And Marcia, do you have any more comments about that? I think it sounds, I mean, I like what I was hearing. The fact that we're gonna probably
It's a
take.
zero, I mean, it's not, it's a zero.
Right, we're just,
increase.
it's even.
It's actually, they're looking at the commercial end and the cost of per kilowatt for each class. So and if you look at the study, Fairfax is way on the low end. Even after you do the proposed rate, we're still at the low end, lower than, the median. Almost all the utilities too, in the area that they're comparing us with. I was pleasantly surprised by that our utility rates are the lowest around.
It's pretty neat.
So kudos to Fairfax. So I think it was a very good thing to do a rate analysis study, and it shows us exactly where we're at. They think we're a strong utility and we must be doing some things right, so I'm glad that we did the rate study so that we can get it in line where
Right.
now our commercial will be down on the low end too. They'll be lower than the median of other customers, so we can be happy about that we're.
It's good for taxable work in the town too.
So when this gets out, that Fairfax lower utility rates will have.
Can you do something about
Denise is gonna put that in the paper. She's gonna have it in the paper.
She's gonna take the median,
Right,
how
yeah.
many, Excel's way up here, Lakers is way up here.
Yeah, and then she's gonna have us right, yeah, right.
Everybody will be moving to Fairfax.
Could you
Okay.
do something like, highlight something like that on the website? Just
We could.
the paper.
We'll just try.
Okay, so do I have a motion to pass the resolution 2016-25?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Oh, you do. Okay, motion's made by Jenny, seconded by Josh to pass resolution 2016-25. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to our audit, our contract with Bailey. Last year, it went up, well, this year it went up 3.8% of an increase. Last year was about 19,700, and we're going to 20,500. Anybody have any comments on that or any questions?
Have you been with them for quite a few years, Martha?
No questions? I need a motion to accept their contract.
I'll make the motion to accept the IBLE contract.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Ross, seconded by Cindy to accept the Bailey contract for $20,500 for the 2016 audit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to Marcia's staff report.
I guess that the first thing that I was going to ask the city council is that, I know there's no action taken on longevity pay. If they would consider just increasing the pay plan out to 20 steps versus the 10 that you have now. I think you're gonna have to look at the fact that your employees, once you get the, for example, the utility employees, it takes them 5 years maybe, if they go into it right away when they're hired, to get to be a journeyman. And so you're looking at, they're probably at step 7 when they get there. And if they're looking at, after 10 years, never another increase, or the council's got to start considering that a small percentage, probably the 2% isn't probably going to keep those employees here. And you've got a couple employees now that are getting the 2%. For example, the 2% will net from the insurance costs that went up and being withheld from their checks, will net one person $10 over the whole year. That's what your 2% increase is doing for them. So I think if you want to increase the pay plan to 20 years, or if the council wants to consider more than a 2% increase. I know cost of living is less than the 2%. I realize that, but if you look at the insurance costs and how substantially they increased and what it's doing to the city employees' paychecks, I realize everybody's probably in the same boat and everybody probably wants to have the same larger increases. I know there's communities around that had 5%, 3%, and I don't know, you two are going to possibly face union. I don't know, maybe Jenny could comment on union.
I belong to the union and now I'm not in the union, but it's worked out for us, so. But yeah, there's substantially higher increases than 2%.
Okay, if we increase the steps to 20, and that's something you'd have to present to the new council next time.
Well, unless you just, if you're increasing them 20, if you're increasing them the pay plan 20 steps, it's the same increase.
Just to increase it up.
Yes.
So how do you do it with current employees that are past that then?
How are you going to do it?
Yeah, how do you take the steps? Because their steps, some,
They go up one step.
okay, no, I'm saying, take you for example, if you're the only one that's been here more than the step, where do you find yourself then?
Well,
'Cause
you
you're
would be
way
at
past.
step 11.
Okay.
So I could stay another 20 years. Oh, not 20, 10. But I'm just saying that you're gonna have to look at, you're gonna have to look at it just a little bit differently than
Well, it's,
2%.
I mean, if they are gonna organize, then the step schedule kind of becomes a moot issue
Yeah.
anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because they'll come in.
Well, I'm not saying they're organizing, I'm asking you about union.
Oh, well.
I don't want to start anything here now.
Well, I'm just saying, if they are planning on organizing, then they'll come in with they'll work with their bargaining team
Right.
for a proposal, and then you'll have to negotiate at that, and the step schedule doesn't matter. But-
So I'm just saying that there's some things to consider, not just, keeping your employees. It costs $5,000 a year to train on a journeyman, and then you get them trained after 4 or 5 years, and then you're gonna let them go off to,
And I think that's an important point. I mean, if you have someone here for 10 years, they're obviously a good employee, and you want to keep that employee.
and they got all their
And you want to keep them,
certifications.
yeah, and they're also,
But it's so cheap, utilities are so cheap here, they're gonna wanna stay here anyways. They're not gonna wanna move.
Well, is a 20-step program gonna keep them? I mean, are they looking for something else?
Cost of living side here, still.
Well, I think they're looking, right now, they're looking for more than 2%.
Right, and I understand that, but is the 20-step schedule gonna solve the problem, or is there other things that maybe a personnel committee, not that I wanna have another meeting, but, that we could sit down with the employees and discuss what they're thinking?
I think there should have been a discussion there. Personally, I don't believe the 20 steps is the answer. From what I think is maybe increase from the start, attract good staff from the start, and then it builds up and it is attractive from the beginning. I don't know too many businesses or places you get 2 raises a year, I guess is my, I agree, yes, your first 5-6 years, you do get 2 raises a year. Because I do believe the COLA is a raise. I agree. I think that yes, it is a cost of living adjustment, but it's still a raise. You still get more money in your paycheck. Now, some people are only getting a 2%. Some are getting 5 other places, but it's the insurance. It's killing everybody. Not too many people are seeing an increase in their paycheck. Does it suck? Absolutely. Do I want to lose the employees? Absolutely not. That's
One thing I found out is that even with the insurance, at least where I work, the employees have been more than willing to take some concessions. They've taken higher premiums, higher deductibles in order to get a better increase, And then the council was more willing to work with them to give them a better raise because they did keep the insurance costs down. And, I don't know if that's an option or not, so.
They did that last year, and they went from 1,200 deductible up to 5,000.
Okay.
So, and
Do
it
we
kept
have
they
set
kept the
numbers for
budget the
this year for
same.
insurance?
Pardon?
Do we have the set numbers for this year for insurance? I hadn't heard exactly how it was going to affect us.
30%.
And I just maybe missed that, so I was just curious if we knew those numbers, how much our premium was changing.
So how much was her going to go up? She wants to know.
For my family.
it should be the same across the board.
Right, but I have family and a lot of them just have personal, so I already.
I think it should have been shared with you.
I'm just
a
wondering
while
what
ago.
my monthly is going to be now.
Oh, I thought you knew that.
I knew that they were going up, but I didn't know what the set number was. I didn't know what my exact amount was going to be. I'm just curious.
You must know because it came out of your check this time.
I don't really look at it. Direct deposit. Sorry.
Yeah, it came out. It's $70 more.
But my deductible's still the same?
5,000.
Mine's 10, but for the family.
Well, yeah, but it's
5,000.
5,000, yeah. It's 10,000.
Right.
Okay, so do you want a personnel committee meeting?
Well, I think we should have one, but I think we should have one with some information. I mean, I think we should have the employees come or some representative of the employees, and I guess what are they looking for? I mean, do they want a 10% raise, or I don't know what they're thinking, so I'm kind of flying blind here. But I think we could probably meet not at a regular.
All I know is everybody was grumbling, and so here I am.
Okay, I think personnel meeting would be in order, okay?
Okay.
We'll schedule one.
The next thing is probationary period. It's come to the attention that even though it was a promotion in the department, that Joel should have been put on a 1-year probation. I thought I should have told the personnel committee that that was the case, that it should have been a year. But I honestly didn't look at the personnel policy, and I was thinking promotions within could be set versus going a year. So I guess if the city council wants to go by the personnel policy, they should give Joel a 1-year probationary period. And also the other thing is that it wasn't, the position wasn't posted, but the position was not posted for any other promotions. It wasn't posted for Craig's at that time. It wasn't posted for Eric's at that time. Nor was it posted for Joel's, because they're promotions from
Within.
intern. Yeah. So just to end that whole discussion too. So it's up to the city council, but if you want to go by the personnel policy, I guess promotions internally are a year in there also. I thought it was new employees until I looked at it.
How long has the 6 months been, or the 12-month, I'm sorry, probation? How long has that been? Has that been a while? I guess I was surprised when I saw it was 12 months.
Yeah, it's, I think they worked on it, and it was a lot of, I think it was Doug and Brad, and.
So it's probably when
It was
brought out a lot of,
2014.
when there was a lot of
February
change,
2014 and all that.
new
was
staff.
changed.
When all the policies were gone through. Okay, so if we're going to go with the policy, then does someone want to make a motion that Joel has a 1-year probation?
I think we almost have to follow policy, unfortunately, but
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Josh, second by Jenny, that Joel's probation period will be 1 year. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
The next thing I have is the LMCIT. Today I got a dividend check from the insurance, from the league's insurance, and it was $35,978.
Nice.
So we got back.
Nice.
Nice dividend. The other thing is, the next thing is solar power. CMPA gave us a survey to send out to all our customers to see if they're interested in solar power. We don't do. So and we do have someone that's interested in solar power right now, so.
Do we have an ordinance?
No, we don't, and that's what we have to work on.
That's something else that's got to be done.
Yep.
I think it has to be done kind of soon, because I think that person is really kind of very interested.
Yes, they are. So.
So,
I just wanted the council to know that, or do you want us to survey the community?
I think, why don't you do an ordinance first?
Yeah, because if somebody walks in the door and wants to do it, and we don't have any
We don't
regulations
have
for them.
anything done, you know, we need to have something on board, so I think that's number one.
If you need one, I have one. I can send you.
Okay, I have windows
And
and
Glencoe's, I do believe.
Glencoe's, so maybe we can just
yeah.
get to a work session going.
Wyndham's and Glencoe's are both the
Oh,
same.
no.
There wasn't
I'm
much
sure ours
difference
is the
in
same
them,
as
so.
theirs too.
Okay, so you guys will take care of that. I think that's the first step.
Took care of the screen. Then there's the Board of Appeal and Equalization training. I'm gonna need someone to take that.
Is that the only one
It's
that's?
online. The only one that's certified is
It's me,
Lois right
and I'm
now.
going.
And you're
That's
going?
gotta be done before April.
I just do not have time.
You can do it all online, and I had to
There's
go
a new
to-
mayor here, he could do it.
I think that maybe the new mayor or the new council people, council members. They're
Could we
not
get them the information at least?
It doesn't take very long, I don't think. I had to go to a meeting and sit half the day, but now you can do it online.
Just half the day?
Well, it's
Actually, I think it was only 4
Then the
hours.
next thing is conflict of interest. I need a motion that we had an EDA board member apply for rehab funds. We have to acknowledge it at this meeting, that we know that he's an appointed EDA board member and he is applying for rehab funds through the Unity Small Cities program, rehab program.
So how do we do that? What kind of a motion do we make for that? Or how do we do that?
What? Is it the EDA that approves the, I guess?
No. No, they don't. They don't approve them, so I don't know why there's a conflict of interest, but they're saying they need, I have to do a worksheet and
Yeah, I saw that work.
a motion, and I have to get an attorney's opinion.
Well, as long as he doesn't participate in the process or the voting, and leave it up to the other members to consider what action.
We don't
they
have
take.
anything to do with it. Well, yeah, but
I didn't think we had to do anything, remember? I made them promise. Here I'm doing worksheets and,
So what exactly do they want from the city?
and I emailed you that. And I even yellow highlighted the attorney's opinion.
Okay.
Can you get it? Okay, it's in here. Disclose the nature of the conflict. There isn't really any conflict, so I don't really understand why they need this, but they have asked me twice now or told me.
I'm sure it's just that they're on the board and they're asking for the money, that's probably the nature.
all we need is, we need to make a motion that we acknowledge that this person is applying for the grant and that he is an EDA member, and we acknowledge and know that. Wouldn't that do? Wouldn't that work?
That motion.
It's Dennis Hoffman. Or Hoffman.
Yeah, it's Dennis.
I don't know what Dennis Hoffman.
Okay, she made a
Yeah.
motion that we understand that he is
There's a
applying for the
conflict,
grant,
yes.
and there is a conflict because he's an EDA member. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Jenny made a motion, you want to second it? All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion's carried. That was a weird motion, that one.
The next thing is I will defer to Aaron on John Armelius, 25 First Street Northeast. So you filed it with the court?
Yep. So you all remember the hearing and the report, and so I assume there's been no significant progress on it. So we did get a note or something from him, pretty much saying, "Don't tell me what to do." And so I filed it with the court. We have a hearing coming up in February. So should get an order to take it down after that.
Okay, so but springtime will be down.
So I don't know if you have, I don't know if it's too early yet to request proposals from contractors who could do the work, so that at least maybe get a little head start on that process.
Well, in February is when the hearing is?
Yeah.
What's
You just have
the
to
court
wait till then.
says? No.
Well, the court shouldn't say no, but if that happens,
So does it
I would
work?
expect that in early spring, we could probably go to work on it, so I'm just thinking maybe get a little lead work done and find out who can do it at cost estimates.
Is that something you have to advertise? Or hopefully it'll be under 10,000?
Well, I don't know how much it's gonna be.
The fire department burned it down.
Yeah, I think
Certainly can't be asbestos in it, there's nothing
if
else.
there's,
Nothing left there.
there's asbestos,
Nothing else.
that's what drives the cost up.
I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll have to be inspected anyway.
Yeah, you have to if you do that.
But there are some that have been able to burn that I've done for other cities. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
I guess maybe I should contact the fire department and see if they would like to.
And I don't know if our building official will be able to tell us. Maybe Bernie would know, just from, 'cause he's been through it.
I don't think there was when we went through it.
Yeah, okay.
What's
He
that?
didn't point any of it out.
No asbestos.
I don't think, yeah, because Bernie there was, but I mean, that inspector, he comes and he's usually runs through pretty fast. He knows what he's looking for too, so.
Oh, you're talking for control burn.
No asbestos.
Wow.
But yeah, for.
He was
We've already
talking
had the
with the
building
initial,
inspector in
yeah.
there.
Yes, he's talking that, and he's talking.
But even for a control burn, the fire department would have to have an asbestos inspection done. And then after that, then you can go ahead and, because you gotta have the documentation from him that it's good to go, and you're clear to burn it, so.
Well, then maybe we should just wait until the, we have the orders. Hopefully we can burn it.
Does the court see the photos?
They see
Yeah,
all.
did you get to show them? Did you show, oh,
I think I
good.
filed it with the,
Good.
Good done.
Okay, let's move on to Joel.
Well, lately we've just been cleaning up buildings and doing some maintenance on our equipment.
And
Now we've been fixing some snowplow stuff
and clean streets.
and clean streets, yes. And we cleaned up the street sweeper and we had to send that in to get some maintenance done too, so. Had some issues with it. Other than that, it's good.
Miss Caitlin.
I don't have very much. The kitchen is pretty much done. We're trying to get in the swing of things. We've got a few minor things from Dave, the health inspector, but nothing much. We're really, really short-staffed. Nothing new. So I've been picking up a lot of shifts for that. Kennedy Hansen started training last night, so hopefully that goes well, but she isn't 18 yet, so she'll just be cooking for now. That's all I have, unless anyone has anything for me.
Mr. Police Chief?
Okay, we had 208 different calls and events last month. I think it's actually went down a little bit. We had a little more bigger things happen. Does anybody have any questions about that? And at the last council meeting, we had this thing, policy for part-time police. I did revise it and take out some stuff. So I put it on everybody's spot.
Oh, explain the
Yeah,
animal.
the animal complaints.
The animal complaints.
55 animal
Jenny just
complaints.
said 55 animals.
There were,
My dog
they're
wanted to use this.
they're like for license violations and stuff
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
I was gonna say, wow, you were busy all month chasing dogs.
No, we were too. Wish I could get rid of some of them.
This policy was brought to our committee this evening as well.
Yeah.
We approved it. And again, it was a lot to do with, kind of able to, we've had staff not
Willing to
work for
work.
a full year. So this policy kind of allows us, if they haven't worked for a full year,
We can eliminate them.
we can eliminate them
Take them
from
out
the
of
jail,
the
from the roster.
Because all I'd have to do is send them a letter instead of, hey, resign.
You
have a minimum number of shifts they have to work a year?
No.
Okay, I think we need a motion to pass this, if you want to adopt it. There's a second. Okay, motion made by Jenny, seconded by Cindy to pass the new policy for the police department, the part-time help. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
Okay, and I also did order the new squad car because Josh says I have to order it before the first of the year, so I'm assuming it's, what, 6 months out,
Yeah, right, 2 or 3.
so. Is that it?
Had to.
Had to. He told me I had to.
The committee reports are in the packet for the police committee, EDU minutes. Any questions on them? Any correspondence, any council concerns? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Jenny, second by Cindy to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Is someone?
I'll get the recording.